Are smaller players more susceptible to injuries in the NFL? That's a good question. Is size a concern for long-term success in that highest leagues? We're going to find out. We're going to find out right now, because bienvenidos and welcome to the Injury Prone Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jorge Martin. Dr. Edwin Porras coming in from the worldwide headquarters at Pro Athlete Physical Therapy, right there in the lab. I love to call it the lab. Compa, ¿cómo estamos?
No, estamos bien, estamos listos, estamos ready, as my Dominican friends would say. I want to talk to some of these smaller guys, give a little bit of data, how to potentially project injury issues if there are injury issues. And yeah, man, I'm ready to go. We got an announcement at the end too.
A little bit of news coming at the end of the show. But yeah, you know what? These coaches have always said in the past that you can't teach height, nor can you teach speed. And there are some super freaks who had both: Bo Jackson, Eric Dickerson, Calvin Johnson. You know, you had this idea to delve into this subject, which is kind of really relevant with some smaller, faster players coming in the league. And, you know, some of them had success, but there were also some concerns that kind of cropped up. So we're going to start with one of the guys who flashed like you wouldn't believe, and also had to spend some time on the bench, on even on the IR. De'Von Achane, our buen compadre, incredible season, 7.8 yards per carry. He had, in his very first NFL start, over 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, but also missed time with the shoulder, missed time with the knee. Also had an ankle that cropped up. Compa, he's 5'9", 188, fast as all get out, but he still missed 6 games. ¿Qué piensas? Is it, with all those injuries coming in, how much do we have? Is it a concern that injuries could be an issue for him?
Yeah, I want to say yes, but I don't have the data to prove it. So let's start here. There was a 10-year study on NFL running backs.
Vamos.
They looked at a lot of things. Really, the point wasn't to do BMI, but they ended up tracking BMI. They had Group A. Group A saw 150 to 250 carries in 2 consecutive seasons. Group B saw 300 plus carries in 2 consecutive seasons. What they found was that in terms of games missed, if their BMI, which if you're not familiar with BMI, it's just a calculation done. It's very arbitrary, very subjective, but it's a consistent measurement that has been used in circles, so we'll use it. What they found was that in those 2 groups, basically medium amount of carries, a large amount of carries, they saw no difference in games missed if the running back's BMI was at least 29, right? So really 0 evidence exists for or against smaller backs being hurt more than bigger backs. But it's also selection bias, because it's those running backs were only between the BMI of 29 and 33. Well, guess who falls out of that? It's De'Von Achane, right? Ever so slightly, his BMI, when you calculate his height and his weight, is 27.8, right? We don't know if that's enough to really make a difference statistically or clinically. We don't know if that is why he's had MCL issues, because I've said it time after time again, NFL running backs, they get injured, right? NFL players get injured. There's a 100% injury rate in NFL players in general. If you play more than a year, you're probably going to end up injured at some point or another. Now, back to his injury history, the knee injury and the shoulder injury both tend to be contact injuries. We know the knee was. We're not entirely certain on the shoulder. Could that be because of his smaller frame? I'm not sure. He falls outside of that 29 BMI, like I said. So I would say I'm starting to work on tiers. I'm starting to get a little more work done on my injury tiers, performance tiers that are going to be in the book. We didn't promote the book last time, compadre. We need to promote the book. Injury Prone Draft Guide. Get your pre-order now. It's going to be in the link. We'll put it in the show notes. But De'Von Achane, I'm not sure where I'm going to place him yet. I think that he's going to be at least in the lower tier of the yellow light tier. So because we simply don't know. We need more data. We need more of a sample size on De'Von Achane, but I would say he is not risk-free.
That is, that's a big concern. He's, but you know what? People are getting gassed up about him. He's going at the tail end of round 2 in underdog drafts, going as the RB6 right now. That upside is so big, but it's hard to really feel comfortable drafting him at that point, especially if you've drafted Christian McCaffrey early. So that's if you drafted Christian McCaffrey early, I think you got to hit wide receiver at that point. Just go wide receiver, and then just and then come back out, and and then risk the possibility that Achane is going to actually blow up for somebody else, blow up in a good way. So we don't, definitely hope that happens, but we have to give the, Edwin, when Edwin gives his educated research-based prognostication, it's something that some reality has to be splashed on it. Compa, real quick, we got to make sure wait a second, wrong one. Make sure, amigos and amigas, you're subscribed to the Injury Prone podcast on YouTube. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. And also, when you go to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code Injury Prone, all one word. Get in there, put in your first deposit up to $250. You're going to get matched, and you're going to get into the best ball barrio, as we like to call it over here on the Injury Prone podcast. So get in there, compa. So let's talk about another player. Jahmyr Gibbs did not have a high contact injury. Also came in, he's listed at 200 now. When he came in, he was slightly under. I think it was like 198, 199 listed at the combine. Had a hamstring injury. Definitely a speed guy. What's the kind of like the concern level with him, considering he had himself a great year last year?
Yeah. So with Jahmyr Gibbs specifically, it probably doesn't sound like it's a big difference, right? But those 12 pounds that he's got on De'Von Achane do make a difference. That automatically places him in the 29.5 range of a BMI, which does put him in that sort of quote unquote safe range. Barely, but it does put him in the safe range. So, Jahmyr Gibbs theoretically isn't at risk for more injury than other players, other than what his injury history shows us, which is his hamstring strains. Typically, running backs don't have much issue with these hamstring strains as much, but it does sort of put him slightly at risk, right? There's about a 25% re-injury risk on these hamstring strains throughout a career. So Jahmyr Gibbs, not a big injury risk other than, looking at that hamstring. So other than that, he's probably just at risk like everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it different than a knee or a shoulder, huh? The hamstring injury.
Yeah, 100%. Contact versus non-contact.
Okay. Well, one guy who had contact injuries both seasons, Kyren Williams, ankle issue in the season opener in 2022, his rookie year. And then right after breaking out, he missed several weeks last year. He missed 4 games going on the IR. He's 5'10", 194. So much has been made a bit about his height and weight, but he was, he had that ankle injury in let's see, where are we at? He missed weeks 7 to 11 right there, and he ended up breaking a hand in the playoff game. So with leg injuries and now the hand that's a freak. That's football, right? But now that we've got multiple ankle injuries, what's the level of concern? And you've talked about it a little bit in a previous show.
Yeah, so the level of concern for Kiren Williams is that at some point he just sort of loses juice because he has had so many of those ankle injuries, and he is on the lower end of, like I said, that quote unquote safe zone when it comes to BMI. So does it have something to do with his BMI? Is it just that he is just prone to more fractures? We don't really know for a fact, but that is something that we want to keep in mind. Regardless of why, we know Kiren Williams has a history of fractures, specifically bone and joint issues, more specifically ankle injuries, ankle surgeries. So that's something to monitor, something to keep an eye on. The Rams drafted Blake Corum, right? That's something to keep an eye on too. When the team is telling you something, and they almost drafted basically the closest thing that you could get from an archetype perspective of Kiren Williams. So he's definitely not a guy that comes without risk. Again, similar to De'Von Achane. He obviously puts up massive numbers if he's able to carry the load. But again, he's a guy that I wouldn't necessarily want as my hero RB if you really want to go that direction, or my anchor or anything like that.
It's, it's tough. I mean, you're right that the Rams are trying to find the right kind of combination between him and Blake Corum. So I think right, to draft him in the third round, going receiver. There's some interesting receivers going right around him. Jalen Waddle is one, who I'd be very intrigued to draft. But a guy who scored 15 touchdowns on 260 touches last year, if they could spread those 260 touches over 16, 17 games, that would be, maybe you still get the 15 touchdowns and still get a good year. But man, it's hard to bank on that, especially coming off that injury. All right, compa. I think so many people have talked about Bryce Young from a height weight standpoint, hand size. He did miss a game last year with an ankle injury, and I actually was kind of shocked when I looked at the number of sacks he took. I got reminded how many sacks he took. 62 sacks last year and still missed one game, playing behind a porous offensive line. Supposedly they improved the offensive line, but could that be a good sign for his durability that he took that many hits and really only missed one game?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a good sign, but you don't want to take that many hits, right? And the whole thesis of the mobile quarterbacks, the two studies that I've done, if you haven't read those studies that I've done on mobile quarterbacks, comment down below that you want the studies. Yeah. Just say mobile QBs and we'll get you the link. It's tough, right? Like, really, what I learned the most was it's obvious, right? It sounds obvious, but if you're a sitting duck in the pocket, you're statistically more likely to get injured. If you can evade tackles, if you can evade sacks, if you can evade taking contact, that's obviously ideal. So Bryce Young obviously isn't Lamar Jackson, but I think he's quick enough and slippery enough to avoid some of those hits, but he still took a ton. You don't want to be a sitting duck in the pocket. It's statistically more likely to lead to injury if you take a sack. So I don't love that he took that many sacks. Like, he's got to bring that down. Hopefully the QB whisperer can help him learn that. Even though he is, like I said, he's a smaller guy, but even though he, like you said, he only missed one game, this is not a good trajectory that you want to stay on. So hopefully that he can improve the ability to avoid sacks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you talk about it all the time. I mean, even you were one of the people to point out that Lamar Jackson, when he had that knee injury, it was an injury suffered in the pocket, not when he was out running, where he's one of the most elusive players in the NFL. Yeah, he needs to learn how to take the not take the big hits, because I'm kind of curious if he could be an outlier like Pedro Martinez. 5'11", about $175, through 98 with just filthy stuff, and carried it into his career, obviously, to be a Hall of Famer. But I'd love to see Bryce Young be that kind of outlier in that kind of way. So yeah, and that's why it was good that they beefed up their offensive line, gave him another pass catcher in Deontay Johnson, so he could get the ball out quickly and not have to take those hits. So let's see if we find out, because he is a deal. QB 27, going round 16 at pick 193 in underdog drafts. So yeah, let's see if you go Pedrito, a little like Pedrito. So last player we're going to talk about, the Slim Reaper. And this is, I put him in the show doc just because there were so many size and BMI concerns about him when he got drafted. And in 3 seasons in the NFL, he's missed one game, and that was not due to injury. Not to say he didn't have nagging stuff at different points, but it was a week 18 game that in a week 18 game where the playoffs were already locked in, and they didn't have any playing for. So Devonta Smith been a baller. He in 176 catches, 2,292 yards, 14 touchdowns. Do size concerns seem to matter less with a wide receiver compared to a running back?
I think they can. The biggest injuries that you see in wide receivers are hamstring strains, and we haven't seen that with Devonte Smith necessarily yet, so that's good. But yeah, I mean, if you're not taking the ball and running in between the tackles and getting taken down every single time, then you're going to be better off. But as we saw and we've seen, most you're still at risk for ribs injuries. You're still at risk for concussions if you get sort of left out to dry, hung out to dry by your quarterback, stuff like that. That's still they still get taken down on the side of their shoulder, which is an AC joint issue. So even though this is a situation where he's been fine, like you don't want him taking hits, but yeah, I think that he's shown at this point it's enough of a track record to show that he's probably going to be fine, and I wouldn't be too concerned specifically for Devonte Smith.
And you know what? It's one of those things where I think he's the kind of guy that reminds you that some guys are just different, right? That some guys are just, I mean, maybe he's, maybe he's built right. Maybe he's just a lucky or, or maybe he just is able to tough it out. I mean, that's just different. Those are the outliers that you can't, I guess, you can't really quantify, right? Some of the guys who maybe have a little more ganas that we talked about in a previous episode.
Exactly.
Perfecto. Yeah. And you know what, going on at his ADP right now on Underdog, wide receiver 18, going pick number 25 overall. He's going right there in that pocket with Kiren Williams. So very still a good pick. I think he's a lock for 85 to 100 catches, and 1,100, 1,200 yards, maybe even more. So vamos a ver. That was a good one. Compa, so kind of instead of cultura class, it's kind of a little bit of announcement time. Well, it's by the time this came, this coming out, it's already come out that I've just recently accepted a new position with Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. I'm going to be a staff editor there. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break on co-hosting, a chiquito break with the show. I'm still going to try and help, wherever I can on the show, even making some cultura class recommendations. But not everybody, por ahorita, Edwin's going to be flying solo sometimes on the show, maybe occasionally having guests. During the season, we'll be working out with quick updates for you on to help you get ready for your setting your lineups every week. But it's amazing. We've barely been at this YouTube thing for less than a year, and our audience over on the audio side, we see you. We see those numbers that you guys are consistently there, and muchas gracias for being there. But it's been fun watching this channel grow and watching our friendship, our compadrehood to keep growing. So I want to say muchas gracias, compa, without getting too sentimental. You've been so supportive of this chiquito break. When we had the last talk after I got the offer, I still remember. Very, very early, we had the conversation. You said, "You and me against the world. Let's go, let's go." And did, and we're making a dent. And it'll be a little bit different, but we're going to keep doing it because that's what we do. That's what we're going to keep dándole con ganas, pegándole con muchas pilas. But I want to say thank you for bringing me into the injury-prone community. Ya de veras sí somos licenciados.
We are, and I just wanted to say I really appreciate George. George does all the behind-the-scenes stuff, right? He makes it so that I can just come on here and ramble, and that has been key, especially with me starting a business this year in particular, to just be able to show up, have the script, have the things that I need to say, and we banter for a little bit, and then he takes all of the video, the audio, he edits it, he puts it together, he throws it up, he uploads it, he does everything essentially outside of on top of being the on-camera personality. And like you said, you're not going away forever, but it is going to be a little different now. If you're an OG, if you've been here for a while now, it's going to go back similar to what it was in the very beginning, where it was me hosting, me doing all of the on-camera stuff, and it being primarily a show for with me, not for me, but with me. But George isn't going away 100%. But I just want to say how happy I am for George. This is a full-time role. This is the big leagues for you. You're at a great company with a great leader. They have great content over at Fantasy Life. A lot of respect for those guys and girls over there. And I couldn't be happy for you. I told you when you called me and when you text me, and then I called you immediately and I screamed in your ear about how happy I was for you. You probably had to take the phone away from your ear, but I am really happy for you, compadre. Nobody deserves it more. if we want to talk about ganas, if you want to talk about truly the Mexican spirit, Jorge embodies that. He's one of the hardest workers. And I say that, I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Everybody says everybody's a hard worker. This dude pulls hours, nights, evenings, early mornings, and he is legitimately one of the hardest workers that I know and have ever met. And I'm so excited for you on this journey with Fantasy Life. And like I said, you're not going away. We're still going to talk tequila. We're still going to be in leagues together. But genuinely, dude, nobody deserves this more than you. And you're going to crush it. And I'm super excited for you. And yeah, hopefully eventually we can get back on camera together and banter back and forth. But in the meantime, we're not going anywhere. We'll still be here. Again, we'll be in the league. George is a huge part in helping me with the injury prone draft guide. He's playing a huge role there. So he's not going away. But I am so happy for you and congratulations.
Thank you, compa. You're making me, you're getting me sentimental right now. So oh man, but thank you. And then you know what, I'm grateful for, I'm so grateful for your friendship, and it's so funny. We've still never been face to face, other than on a StreamYard link, or so that to me is that we've been able to build up this friendship. So hopefully we're able to in Canton, Ohio, but yeah. So we'll do that. When we do, we'll raise some cold ones. And but yeah, compa, this is something that I've wanted for a long time. Something I've wanted to kind of show my daughters that you can still kind of reinvent yourself at any point in your career and still follow something that you love and you want to enjoy, and that's as important to me as possible, and that's as gets me sentimental. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. We've got fellow members of the Cookout group. Chris Allen, Kendall Valenzuela are in there, Marcus Grant. So and you've been on the show, so I'm gonna keep reminding them, hey, you know what, we got an injury expert, just a text message away. So you just tell me when you need them on a show, and we'll get it going. So but compa, let's tell the people what's coming up. First off, let's make sure that they're liking and subscribing the YouTube page, Injury Prone on podcast on YouTube. Vámonos there. And also make sure you're following Pro Athlete Physical Therapy at Pro Athlete PT on all the socials. As Edwin mentioned, my daughter helps him out very much, gives him great ideas, and he comes off looking good. And again, you see that up in the corner with Edwin, that Underdog Fantasy logo, Underdog promo code, Injury Prone, up to that $250 first deposit. Hit that number and you're going to get matched. And let's go. Let's get in the best ball barrio. Last but not least, where is it? ¿Dónde está? Get pre-order the Injury Prone draft guide and playbook. Okay, it's in the show notes. That link is in there. It's in the show notes, both on the audio as well as the video. So hit that link, hit that pre-order. You're going to see some great up-to-date draft profiles. In fact, I'm going to edit them right now and make sure they're ready for you. So compa, muchas gracias otra vez. Last words? Any last words on your side?
Congratulations, man. Let's keep moving forward.
No, muchas gracias everybody for joining us. Hey, this is the Injury Prone podcast, where you come for the injuries, stay for the tacos and tequila. Salud. Y otra vez, muchas gracias.